We're doing the Daniel Top 10 Countdown. The book of Daniel, one of the most interesting, fascinating, and important books found in the Old Testament.
Since the 19th century, scholars have doubted its historicity. They've doubted Daniel wrote it. They say, no. It was probably written by someone in the 2nd century BC. But recent linguistical studies have pointed out that the Hebrew that's used in the book of Daniel predates the Hebrew that we find in the 2nd century BC Dead Sea Scrolls. Moreover, based on the archaeological evidence that this book was written by Daniel and that it does accurately describe the events of the 6th century BC.
So let's start jumping into the archaeology, Brian.
All right, number 10 is the Nebuchadnezzar Stela. The book of Daniel begins with these words: in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Number 9 is the Nebo-Sarsakim tablet. And in 2007, an Assyriologist found that it contained a reference to the Babylonian named Nebo-Sarsakim. Jeremiah 39:3, we see this same man, Nebo-Sarsakim, who is the chief eunuch who was serving Nebuchadnezzar. It affirms this title, chief eunuch, which is used in Daniel 1:3.
A throwaway detail that puts Daniel in a historical context. How could they possibly know of this person centuries later?
All right, number 8 is Nebuchadnezzar's palace. In Daniel 4:4, King Nebuchadnezzar says, I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and prospering in my palace. He was a great builder, and one of his grand achievements was, of course, his palace. Palace Daniel was no doubt familiar with.
All right, now, number 7, the Temple of Marduk, Brian.
Daniel records that Nebuchadnezzar, when he took vessels from the temple of Jerusalem, placed them in the treasury of his God. How many times did Daniel walk that processional way, walk past the temple of Marduk, and look longingly, knowing that the vessels from the temple were inside that structure? Number 6 is the Ishtar gate and the processional way. In his inscription at the gate, Nebuchadnezzar boasts how he constructed the gate of baked glazed bricks depicting wild oxen and raging dragons, had a lion motif. These inscriptions of him boasting about these great things that he built add weight to the words that Daniel includes there about the king's pride and him needing to humble himself.
Now we're on to number 5, which is Babylonian Chronicle 5.
Babylonian Chronicles are clay tablets written in cuneiform that describe the significant events in the Babylonian Empire year by year. It describes in details Nebuchadnezzar's siege of Jerusalem in 597.
Okay, one of my favorites, the Nabonidus cylinders.
These are really interesting because prior to the middle of the 19th century, a Babylonian king named Belshazzar, Daniel 5:1, was unknown to history. And this changed, of course, in 1854 when J.E. Taylor discovered 4 cylinders in the ruins of a ziggurat at Ur. They affirmed that Belshazzar had been entrusted with the kingship and was king of Babylon, reigning the night actually when Babylon fell. And it makes sense then of the reward that Belshazzar offers Daniel. He offers him the 3rd highest place in the kingdom, not the 2nd highest place. 3rd highest place is all he could offer because he was co-regent with his father. All right, the number 3, the Nabonidus Chronicle. And it describes the final years of Nabonidus' reign and the fall of Babylon to Cyrus, the king of Persia. And it records this: and the army of Cyrus without battle entered Babylon. And there are numerous details in this text that are in alignment with the brief biblical description of the fall of Babylon in Daniel chapter 5. First of all, the city of Babylon was captured without battle. And also that Herodotus says it was during a festival that this happened, which is, of course, what the biblical text says too.
Okay, number 2, Brian, a really famous discovery that a lot of people may have already heard of.
That's right. It's the Cyrus cylinder. Daniel 6:28 records that Daniel prospered during the reign of King Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So Daniel spent most of his life in Babylon. He lived through the reigns of 6 Babylonian kings from Nebuchadnezzar through to Nabonidus and Belshazzar, and then at least into the 3rd year of Cyrus. The Cyrus cylinder records the time I returned the images of these gods who had resided there to their places. I let them dwell in eternal abodes. I gathered all the inhabitants and returned them to their dwellings. The Cyrus cylinder makes clear that that was the policy that we see described in the book of Ezra.
Well, they're all exciting discoveries, but we're down to number 1 discovery related to the book of Daniel.
Yeah, the number one discovery related to the book of Daniel, I think, is the Dead Sea Scroll fragments of the book of Daniel. They're hugely important. First of all, Jesus attributed the prophecies in Daniel to Daniel himself, Matthew 24. But many today, as we've mentioned, would argue that the book of Daniel was not composed by Daniel the prophet in the 6th century, but by someone much later during the 2nd century. There have been a number of copies and fragments of Daniel that were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the earliest dates to the 2nd century. There's not enough time for the book to have been written, to have been widely spread around, and then to have been accepted as canonical. And I think that this discovery falsifies the view that it was a late 2nd century composition.
Well, friends, you can see that you can trust the book of Daniel, and I'm reminded that Jesus points to himself as the Son of Man, which is in Daniel chapter 7. The Son of Man came to seek and save the lost, and we hope that you'll embrace this truth today. Thank you for watching Digging for Truth.